Hey everyone, not my typical day, but then again, from the middle of nowhere and from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank you, every single one of you, for subscribing, commenting, and liking our videos. Please keep sharing your love and stay tuned for more. Thank you very much. Off I go. Bye.
There are men who bring light to the world, and there are men who burn the world to be seen. In the dying light of Imperial Russia, as the House of Romanov teetered on the brink of collapse, there walked a man both feared and worshipped, reviled and revered, a peasant, a mystic, a healer, and a sinner. His name was Grigori Rasputin, and his story lies not on the margins of history, but at the very crossroads of power, prophecy, and paranoia. Was he a demon in robes or a prophet in disguise? A puppet master of the Tsar, or merely a pawn in a crumbling empire? This is not merely a tale of a man. This is a tale of how myth overtook truth, how faith collapsed into fanaticism, and how the whisper of one man can echo through the fall of a dynasty. Grigori Rasputin was born on January 21, 1869, in the Siberian village of Pokrovskoye, a cold and forgotten corner of the Russian Empire. He was uneducated, illiterate, until his early 20s, but even as a child, stories swirled about his strange eyes, his wild energy, and his ability to read people's souls. In 1897, he left his wife and children behind and set off on a religious pilgrimage. It was this journey that transformed him into something far more than a man. Rasputin claimed visions, healings, and spiritual awakenings, perhaps even divine purpose. He was drawn to fringe sects like the Klisti, a mystical group that practiced ecstatic rituals and flagellation, though his involvement remains a subject of debate. But the Rasputin that emerged from the wilderness was charismatic, hypnotic, and increasingly influential, a magnet to the disillusioned aristocracy who longed for miracles more than logic. In 1905, Rasputin arrived in St. Petersburg and quickly found himself in the orbit of the most powerful family in Russia, Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra Fyodorovna. Their son, Alexei, heir to the Romanov throne, suffered from hemophilia, a disease that brought him close to death on many occasions. Doctors had failed, science had failed, but Rasputin calmed the bleeding. Some say he hypnotized the boy. Others say he demanded the doctors stop administering aspirin, a blood thinner. Still, others claim divine healing. To the desperate Tsarina, he was no longer a man. He was sent by God. He became her confidant, her counselor, her holy man. And through her, Rasputin's voice echoed through the chambers of the empire. The Russian elite were scandalized. Here was a peasant mystic, unkempt and unwashed, mingling with dukes, ministers, and royalty. Rumors exploded. He was a drunk, a lecher, a puppet master. Stories of his debauchery, hypnosis, and black magic surrounded him. Cartoons in anti-Tsarist newspapers portrayed Rasputin as a demonic figure whispering into the ear of a helpless empress. Historians now suggest that much of this was exaggerated propaganda, driven by nobility, terrified of Rasputin's influence, and a public angry at a faltering monarchy. But Rasputin didn't help himself. He indulged in alcohol, women, and public spectacles. He believed that to be forgiven, one must sin greatly first. He once said, "When the soul is troubled by sin, the body must be humbled." and the way to God is through repentance, after pleasure. A dangerous creed in a fragile empire. By 1916, Russia was a nation at war, bleeding on the Eastern Front in World War I and rotting from within. The people cried for reform. The nobles seethed. The government fractured. And Rasputin, somehow, still stood. But not for long. On December 30th, 1916, a group of aristocrats led by Prince Felix Yusupov, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, and others plotted his murder. The tale of Rasputin's death is the stuff of legend. First, they lured him to a palace and fed him with cakes laced with cyanide. He didn't die. Then they shot him. He staggered to his feet. They shot him again. Still, he breathed. They bludgeoned him. And finally, they threw his body into the icy Neva River. His autopsy allegedly showed water in the lungs, implying he drowned, still alive. Fact or embellishment? We may never know. But his final letter to the Tsar was chilling. If I am killed by common men, you and your children will rule in peace. But if I am killed by nobles, your entire family will be wiped out by the Russian people. Less than 2 years later, the entire Romanov family would be executed by Bolsheviks in the Ural Mountains. Rasputin's tale is not just about superstition or scandal. It's about power, its seduction and fragility, and how fear can shape history. From a socio-political lens, Rasputin's rise highlights how faith becomes fanaticism in times of desperation. The Romanovs leaned on Rasputin because they had no answers, and that vacuum of leadership led to revolution. His presence at court undermined the legitimacy of the monarchy, fueling anti-Tsarist sentiment. He became the symbol of everything wrong with Imperial Russia, regardless of the truth. But Rasputin also represents a deeper human truth, that when institutions fail, people turn to mystics, radicals, and shadows. Today, his name evokes fear, wonder, and confusion. He has been the subject of songs, films, documentaries, conspiracy theories, and even supernatural cults. From Boney M. disco anthem to occult lore, Rasputin lives on in pop culture and political cautionary tales. So what can we learn? That charisma is not wisdom. That belief, unchecked by reason, can corrupt as easily as power. That empires can crumble not with a bang, but with a whisper in the wrong ear. In Rasputin, we see a man whose myth grew larger than his life. A man whose shadow fell long after his body was cast into ice. And in every era, there are those who rise not by birthright or brilliance, but by filling the voids left by broken systems. So beware the holy man in the court. Beware the whisper louder than the crown. This was Fata Morgana, and in the smoke and snow of forgotten empires, some fires still burn. Let me know if you'd like to follow this up with a series on other controversial mystics, royal advisors, or collapse of empire stories. Until then.